What are some of the major issues that can affect the productivity of a Scrum team? Or alternatively, what are some of the major impediments that can hinder the productivity of a Scrum team? Hello, welcome to the Scrum chat room with Dr. Francis Mbunya. And if you're new here, hit the subscribe button. And if you're a returning follower, I want to say thank you very much for watching, dropping those comments. And you know that if you always have a question, drop it in the comment box, and we make sure that I do a follow-up video to answer your question. If you need mentoring, you can find my number in the description chat. If you want to become a Scrum Master and learn and get into a new engaging career path, reach out to me with my number, just a text. We'll get you set up and on the way. All right. Now, one of the things we do is that we go straight to this point without beating around, and we'll try to make sure that we explain it in the easiest way possible. Now, we are talking about some of the impediments that can affect the productivity of a team. The first thing you want to do is to pay attention to the question, and also to understand the baseline. Why would someone be asking you that question? What are some of the challenges that kind of affect the impediment of a team? Now, if you want to understand a Scrum team, if you're working in a pure Scrum environment, maximum of about 10 to 11 people in theory. In practice, it can go beyond, right? So I always try to balance between theory and practice. And then if you work in a safe environment, the team can even be as large as 14, 18 people, although safe recommend about 11 people in the Agile team. But then there's always that kind of differences between reality and the practice. And this is also something very important when you're getting into any new team as a Scrum Master. Do not use the Scrum Guide as a standard to say, oh, you guys are not doing this. This is what the Scrum Guide said. We cannot do this. No. One of the things, take some time, learn the company culture, look at what they have been doing, and you take your time to transition. But then, let's get into our question. Now, if we look at what are some of the major impediments that can affect the productivity of a Scrum team. Now, the first analysis you want to do is that the Scrum team have most Scrum team have a delivery cycle of 2 weeks, sprint, right? Which means that they plan, they execute, they review, and they retrospect every 2 weeks. So what are some of those challenges that can limit their productivity within 2 weeks? Now, the first is capacity. The capacity of the team simply means the number of people that are available to do the work. Some people kind of make a kind of confused between velocity and capacity because they are used kind of interchangeably in Scrum. But capacity simply means that what is the manpower. Now, velocity simply means what amount of work can we commit to. So if you don't know your capacity, it's going to be difficult to determine the velocity, right? Meanwhile, if you have a steady capacity over some time, you can be able to understand what is the velocity of the team based on the average amount of work that they've been completing in the past time. Now, the capacity. Capacity in the sense that, let's say that you started the sprint with 8 developers and you plan out the work that needs to be done. And in the middle of the sprint, maybe one of your team members pull out to assist in another team somewhere, or for some reason, because of emergency, they are out of the team. That is going to affect your productivity. It's going to affect your performance. Now, also in terms of capacity, if let's say you are maybe 8 members in a team and you have a new team member join your team for that month to make it maybe 9 developers, it will also affect your capacity. In most of the cases, maybe we'll think that because one person has added, it's definitely going to add up. But most cases, it might even bring it down. Number one, a new person is joining the team. It kind of disrupt the environment. New developers that have been in the team need to take time to show him around, need to take some time to network. He also need to take some time to set up. And because of those transitions, it can really affect the velocity, the output of the team. So those are some of the major impediments. And now you want to look at also dependency. If your team is depending a lot on external expertise to complete some of the major story, the security issue, the QA and other stuff, which we don't really have this cross-functional team within the skills, you will find out that in most of the cases, you may have a capacity of completing 50 stories, and then you end up finishing maybe just about 30. Why? Because there was a lot of delay between communication of external team members that was a bit beyond your control. And one of the way to manage dependency as a Scrum Master, which is most of the questions you probably want to get, is to be able to, if you deal a lot with external team members that are helping your team, you want to make sure that you're communicating right ahead of time, you're collecting the requirements, and you're giving them early deadline compared to what you want to complete. But then in the safe environment where we look at cadence, cadence simply means that you have about 5 teams working and they have the same start and the same close date. When it comes to spring, you cannot really give them an early deadline, right? With external vendor, you can do that because they are also aware of when you are starting, when you're finishing. So in that case, what you do is you kind of really have to be on top of management with communication, and also kind of breaking down your stories in such a way that you know exactly the time when you're going to be completed, making sure that the stories are really breaking down to the smallest story point possible is going to help you. Now, another major impediment that affect the productivity of the team is overestimating. Now, sometimes the team might really overestimate the work that they want to commit to. Now, most often, it doesn't really mean that the team lack like or skills to estimate. It may happen when the team is not constantly doing backlog grooming. So they get to see the story just during the spring planning, right? And during the spring planning, we're trying to manage the time box. And managing the time box simply means that we cannot just allow communication to go or conversation around the story to go so lengthy in a way that we cannot really manage it. So because we are trying to limit to work within our 4 hours of planning during the spring, we might limit conversation and we might tend to close down some of the conversation, which some members still kind of really have some doubt. So because the team is seeing the story just for the first time, we might kind of jump into conclusions without really paying attention to some of the detailed technicalities that may be needed. But when we constantly have like constant backlog refinement, and the team can see a story during the backlog refinement event, then also revisit that story during planning, it helps them to have like a double fold check on the story, and this can be of really great help. So if the team is only seeing the stories on the day of the planning, it might really kind of affect the productivity because they're just seeing it for the first time. But then when you do like constant backlog grooming event, they see it multiple times. If they miss something during the backlog refinement, they can be able to catch up during the planning. Now, another issue which might cause the productivity of the team to drop down, the more of what I call security issues. Security issues simply means that if your team is building a software which we need a lot of permission to access a lot of software, both internally where we need to request permission and both externally, it might also affect the productivity of your team. Now, these are some of the common challenges that happens with team having kind of spillover or kind of script, as you might technically call it, during the team wide. And it happens in most of the teams. So if a Scrum Master never say that, oh, my team always complete the story 100%, right? You can get somewhere between 85 and 95, and most of the cases you're going to have some of these issues. This is the reason why a Scrum is really, really applicable in most of the software development space, because requirements are constantly changing, security issues are changing, the market is fast changing. So we always really need to adapt. We always need to allow for that flexibility to make changes. Right. Hope this was very useful. Now, what we just discussed is going to help you to be able to answer a lot of questions during your interview. Some of the reason why you might not be able to complete your stories. We just discussed most of them. you might say that one new team member joined your team, and then one of the senior developers was assigned to help him go through, and it took most of his time, and because of that we had work to carry over. You might say, oh, we had some dependency and the other team wasn't too collaborating, and because of that we had some carry over. You might say there was a meeting, there was a time where because of some other external meeting, we missed out our backlog refinement. So the team only got to see the story during the planning meeting, and that is normally not our culture. And that period, we noticed that we had some carryover. You might say that, oh, we had some security issue where the software we're building require a lot of some security permit to be able for us to validate it, and because we had like delay with approving some of those security issue, we had some carried over. Okay, we just go through all of that. Now, if you need mentorship, you want me to coach you personally, check the description button, reach out to me via my just send a text. Please don't call. If you call, the high chances that I will not be able to get on the phone. Just send a text or send me an email, and we definitely really respond quite ahead of time. All right, if you send an email maybe within 24 hours, you don't hear from us, or a text, just kind of redo that. Sometimes the backlog on our end might be a bit overwhelming. It might take some time to get back, but in most of the cases the response time is just about an hour 10 over. All right, thank you very much, and I wish you a really safe and wonderful experience getting into that Scrum Master job. I'll see you in the next 2 days.